Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Yeah. Hello. Welcome to the show. It's May 25th. I sound like I do because I have started many shows with this kind of news, and I'm sick of it, and I'm numb, and I have nothing to say that I haven't said. We are a sick nation. I was just looking at, just in the last, 6 weeks? There is no way we do not become inured to this. That it is normal in the country. You've undoubtedly heard that the definition of news is that which is not the norm. Dog bites man is not a story. Man bites dog. There's a story. And there's something every bit as numbing about the coverage of I have not, and I will not, watch television now for a long time. As you know, I'm pretty much not watching it at all. I cannot. I don't even know how to pronounce the name of this town. I protect what's left of my sanity. Couldn't bring myself to look at the pictures of the victims in Buffalo. And now I'm supposed to look at these children. I'm starting to think that instead of posting pictures of these victims and the stories, the heartbreaking stories of getting to know each and every one of them and their grieving families, I'm starting to think the pictures we should show is of their bodies. The mangled, unrecognizable, bullet-riddled bodies of our children. That make a difference? Just in the last, 6 weeks? There's lists, and you can see the mass shootings in the United States in the last, you can't even have one for this year without it taking up an entire page of a newspaper. It was just about a month ago. 6 weeks. Remember? Subway car shot up in New York City. That seems like a million years ago. And anyway, it didn't really register because, incredibly, no one was killed. It was about a month ago, 16 people in Milwaukee. oh, they were just wounded. That doesn't count, does it? That doesn't count in our. I mean, you see these qualifiers. The most deadly mass shooting in a K through 12, location. The second, it's just the second most. I'm sorry, it's the second most. We have categories now for the ages of the victims, the locations, churches, synagogues, nightclubs, grocery stores. We are sick. Open air flea market in Houston, May 15. Laguna Woods, California, same day. Church shooting. Those both were one day after the Buffalo shooting. Who's counting? There were 693 mass shootings last year in this country. They don't even make the news, most of them. You're saying, what? 600? What? Well, see, if not a lot of people get killed, if it's just people getting injured, it generally doesn't qualify as news anymore in this country because, well, we don't have time. That's all the news would be. You got to sort them. You got to have these categories. I couldn't believe I heard some people actually saying yesterday, maybe this will make a difference. Oh, come on. The body count isn't even, and I'm talking about children here. The children's body count doesn't even rise to number one. I'm sorry. Huh. Imagine being a parent and hearing this news. And it's your child's school. Do you know what happens next? Do you know what happens next? Well, you are told where to go, and there you sit with other anguished, terrified, anguished beyond belief. I can't even imagine with other parents. And there's a kind of lottery going on, right? Some of them are going to find out their child is alive. And they're going to say that God was looking out for them. Ha! As if God wasn't looking out for the ones that are lying bullet-ridden. Those parents yesterday spent hours and hours before they had a clue if their child was dead or alive. They were taken one by one into a building to be swabbed for DNA and then went back out to the horror of the room where they sat with other parents. And we're supposed to engage in the same old, same old? Right. Me ranting and raving the day after? The next week or two? Well, unless, of course, it gets pushed out of our view because an even better, bigger massacre happens. And just like the Buffalo victims are now old news, these children will be old news. You're living in a country that has lost its fucking mind. I saw somebody put it well. He said, despite what you've been reading, this killer did not act alone. Right. No, he was aided and abetted by a governor, by a huge number of Texas state legislators, by hundreds of federal office holders, aided and abetted by judges, lowly judges, Supreme Court judges. And all of these people, they're still at large. And so we come to those most responsible, the people who put these people in positions of power and authority. That'd be us, the voters of America. This is what have reaped and sown. And my understanding is the voters of America are about to go to the polls and reward the party most responsible for this carnage, the Republican Party. They're going to reward them because they're upset about gasoline prices, which have nothing to do with what party is controlling the White House at the moment. But the voters will continue to do what they always do, brain dead, incapable of seeing a larger picture, and they will vote for the people who aided and abetted every mass murder in this country. The gun fetish of this country. There's nothing left to say. Who are the Republicans blaming this on? Well, I've seen a few stories. Ronnie Jackson. Is he in Congress or is he just running for Congress from Texas? Trump's doctor. The drunk. The handsome drunk. He's been heard from. He says it's rap music. You want to blame somebody, you blame those black people. It's rap music. And it's video games. And on Fox News, of course, we were told that there is a way to stop these mass shootings, and that is by prayer and a return to Judeo-Christian values. They only put that Judeo part in. I don't know who decided you had to put that in. They mean Christian values. Like onward Christian soldiers, that where if you ask Jews, the first Christian soldiers we can remember were the Crusaders, and what they did was massacre children. Yeah. So let's get back to those Christian values, okay? And let's pray, because that's bound to help. And they're still busy praying away the gay. How's that working? Someone's telling me that show that's airing on the City Paper website right now is yesterday's show. Just saying. I have a caller. Hello. Go ahead, please.
Hello, Lynn. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is Mary in Murraysville. Yeah, everybody can take those thoughts and prayers and shove them up their ass.
Yes.
I've kind of been in this situation. My son was a victim of a school stabbing. I have some advice I really need to get off my chest. I would appreciate it if you'd hand me the show for 2 minutes.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. This advice is for the people who run schools. Make sure the school nurse is trained in triage. And if this happens, please make sure there's a team of people to answer the phones the next day. The victims might be trying to call in to get something from the school. In my case, we needed my son's glasses that were in his locker, and nobody was there to help us. I had to send a friend over. She knew the police. She grew up here. Fortunately, they let her in the school and got it. I mean, okay. My second point, if the kids do survive and they're in ICU, please stay out of the hospital. Just A-list friends and family only. Part of the problem when I went through something similar, and it's not even that bad comparatively to what the people in Texas are going through, is the crush of the community. You just don't need to deal with that. You know, you got enough. Okay, if it's someone in your community that was a victim and dead or alive, wait a few days. Someone will set up a GoFundMe to help the family. Donate if you can. I mean, it's all you can do. Don't set up the GoFundMe yourself if you're in doubt. Just sit tight and wait. Sometimes there are those fights. There's several GoFundMes going on at the same time. We had the FR fund. That wasn't helpful, but that's a story for another day. My fourth piece of advice, contact the victim's family or church to see if there's a meal train going. You can cook a meal or donate a restaurant gift card. It's petty, but it's helpful at the time. And my last piece of advice, if you are raising kids in schools without family nearby, join a church, go religion shopping, find your people. You'll know inside of an hour if you're at the right place or not. You need a tribe to help you through this. And that's my helpful tips for today.
May I ask how your son is?
Oh, he made a full recovery. He finished school and college, and he has a full-time job and a girlfriend, and he's getting counseling as needed. He was lucky. We're all in counseling.
You're saying you all are still getting counseling?
Well, we're just generally screwed up and need counseling, but this comes up.
Well, yeah, right. Well, yeah, I'm still getting counseling too, and
right.
And I didn't have this kind of trauma.
Right, but on days like this, it comes up, you know, and you're like, fuck. You know, like I have a media black. I can't watch anything. I mean, I live in Murraysville. I can't go out because if I see one NRA T-shirt, I'm going to go off, you know.
This was a stabbing incident for people who are trying to figure this out at Murraysville High School, right?
Yes, it was at Franklin Regional. It was 8 years ago.
Oh, Franklin Regional. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I was at the pharmacy yesterday. They had an FR Strong sticker. I said, take that sticker down. It just reminds me of everything I went through, you know, like... I mean, people mean well, but they really don't understand it.
Well, imagine if that perpetrator, Mary, had a gun.
Yeah, I think about it all the time. That was in my victim impact statement. That was my last sentence. I'm thankful he didn't have a gun, you know. He must have had good parents. Either they kept their guns locked up or they didn't have them. So, you know, thank freaking God.
Wow. Well, thank you for this. It's a good call.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
A lot, you know, it's a hard day for everybody.
Yes.
Everything you said was right. Take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. Well, yeah, I just want to go back to, why are we protected from the reality of these shootings? Why you've never seen a picture, have you? You're never going to see a picture of this classroom. It was one class. My understanding is there's one room. If the anti-abortion crowd can walk around with these huge pictures of mangled fetuses, and why do they do that? They do that because they figure a picture like that might actually make somebody come to their side, make somebody want to act, right? And I know we can't do it because it's because of the families. They don't want their... Although, ask Emmett Till's mother. She came to a different conclusion. She said, no, I want people to see what they did to my son. His battered, unrecognizable, swollen face staring up from his coffin. I'm not so sure the same shouldn't be done. And what about all the parents in this country today who drop their kids off at school if they're still in school today? Huh? How do you drop your kids off at school in this country? Or even if you drop them off and think, well, it's not going to, I mean, what are the odds? You got to do risk assessment. I do risk assessment with COVID. I do risk assessment with this. I'm doing risk assessment. The odds are still really, really low. But the odds aren't low that your child is going to school knowing that kids get killed in school. When I went to school, that wasn't something that was ever in my head. I'm going into a building where I might be killed. And lest I forget I might be killed, I'm going to be subjected to drills of what to do when the killer comes. You think that doesn't traumatize the children of this country? The lucky ones that don't ever get killed? We are sick. Sick. And I'm letting us off the hook by calling us sick. Because I could say, as I suggested, we are complicit. And we're all going to do the dance we do now. Yeah, we are. I'm doing it. You're doing it. Whatever. I have nothing left. Ed says, I've been thinking the same about showing photos. Remember that it was said at the time that the photo of the little girl running from screaming, her body, her naked little body burned by napalm was part of what put a stop to the war in Vietnam. Well, it helped galvanize the horror. But then it takes a long time after that. The first thing that has to happen is, I'm serious, any office holder that is doing the bidding of the NRA must be taken out of office. And until the voters do that, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. And while we can't see the pictures, we're told, we're warned. Oh, be careful. This is sensitive. Oh, you might be triggered and this and that. Triggered! Hey, we know from triggers. We're a trigger-happy people here. You might be triggered. Ha! What an ironic pun. The only thing about seeing the actual carnage that I saw was in the business section of the New York Times the other day, when apparently it turns out that the video of that the Buffalo killer took as he committed his mass murder was still making its way into the living rooms of millions of human beings on Facebook. And not only that, but there were ads alongside the video, which is to say Facebook is making money from the snuff video made by the killer. But you still belong. Aiding. Abetting. Facebook actually recommended certain search terms about the Buffalo gunman video. I'm reading from the New York Times business section, noting that they were, quote, popular now on the platform. I wanted to share, speaking of sick, this piece also was the New York Times on Tuesday. I was going to share it yesterday, but it didn't come up. And then I saw it was reprinted today in the Post-Gazette, so maybe you saw it. This is a story that should have been reported initially by a Pennsylvania paper, not the New York Times, because it is about John Fetterman and what we know about his supposed stroke. Well, I'm saying no one doubts he had a stroke. What is doubted, and I alluded to this, I think, on Monday, because now I have a cardiologist, and, talking to my cardiologist, I happen to say, well, what do you think about this Fetterman thing? And I was led to believe by my cardiologist, the cardiologists are all, they're confused by what has been made public. It doesn't parse. And that's what the headline in the New York Times said. Cardiac experts parse Fetterman campaign's reports on stroke. Well, yeah. And in fact, his campaign has not made his doctors available and has not responded to the questions that are clearly coming their way. And none of this is good, because this is definitely something that the Republicans are going to use against him in this all-important Senate race. This is the seat that the Democratic Party in this country is counting on being flipped. It's not so much that Fetterman might not be in very good health that could get in the way, as much as that he wasn't necessarily forthright about it. Anyone who's lived long enough can remember many a politician being taken down by exactly that. Sort of like, you know, it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. So what's generally being said is that it just doesn't make sense that they put a defibrillator in him, given what they've told us. It would make sense only if he has a different condition than what we have been told. And that condition would be a lot scarier. The condition would be risk of sudden death, like cardiomyopathy. But for what he has, apparently, generally speaking, that is not what is done. He clearly had a stroke. His mouth went down. This is what his wife noted. He started slurring his words. He knew he had AFib, atrial fibrillation, which does up. Half my friends have AFib. It does up your chances of having a stroke. And he was on blood thinners as a result. But the fact that he was treated with a pacemaker and a defibrillator is what's confusing cardiologists. I'll quote one from the University of Michigan. This doesn't entirely make sense. That's what my guy said. It just doesn't make sense. Because defibrillators are used to prevent sudden death. And they usually are implanted in people with weakened heart muscles, or those who have survived an episode in which their hearts stopped. But not for AFib. So most cardiologists are thinking that we're not being told the truth, and that in fact Fetterman's heart is not in the greatest of shape. However, with everything, with his pacemaker and his defibrillator, he's good to go now. I mean, that's good. It's good he didn't have to, die. A lot of times, you don't get these devices until you have like a terrifying incident, as he did, or which may or may not kill you. If it doesn't kill you, then you get the, ISMO. It's why I'm being very proactive in getting a pacemaker in next month, because I don't want to have a major event before. And the cardiologists agree with me. So I'm very lucky in that respect, assuming I don't have a major event before they get the damn thing in me. Oh, man. Okay, so there was that. And I really think, that was a story. Why would the New York Times do that story? That was a story. He's our candidate. That was a story that should have been right here. And it was not here. And I always think it's embarrassing when the Pittsburgh paper or the Philly paper end up reprinting an article that appeared in the New York Times the day before about their candidate, Democratic candidate, who they're supposed to be in the lead on the story. Okay. All right, from sickness to obits. I got one for you. I like this one. I'm not going to do much of it. It's just anytime, I see a real old person, I think, geez, wow, way to go. And this one was in the local paper. Dorothy S. Decker, beautiful woman, 104, born in 1918. And so often happens when a woman dies at 104, her husband preceded her in death. But the part I liked about this obit is this. She was working as a secretary in Florida. This is before she met her husband, where she dated Clark Gable. It says right there in the obit, she dated Clark Gable. Well, that begs so many questions. I wanted it was just one date. Seems to me if it was more of a just dated Clark Gable, that you would expound on that. Because that's, once you date Clark Gable and you live 104 years, you still know that's going in the obit, right? You got anything like that? I mean, that's good. I have a friend who's writing her memoirs, and she's sending me little bits and pieces. And her life is, intersected with so many famous people. It's ludicrous by virtue of her fame. And, she's dropping names left and right because she's got stories to tell these people. And not many of us do. So if you dated Clark Gable once, man, that is huge. That is huge. So that made it in. And it was in Florida that she later met her husband, who was not Clark Gable. But the other part of this obit that I liked was this, where you try to get a sense of who the person was. It says that Dorothy traveled the world with her many friends and listened to her favorite things. Her favorite things were bridge, bourbon, bacon, and chocolate. Now I gotta tell you, for all of us who love to indulge, he's got three things right there that all the health nuts say aren't good for you. Ha ha! Bacon, bourbon, chocolate. Woo! Those are her favorite things. And it says she was a lover of all animals, especially dogs. So there you have it. Good life there, Dorothy. Well done. And while I'm on it, there's another obituary. There's another thing I've been remiss. I just couldn't find the time to note the passing of a consequential Pittsburgh person, and that would be Jim Furlow. Jim Furlow, I knew when I was a reporter. I knew him first as an activist, a troublemaker, He popped up in a lot of my stories, making trouble. Good trouble, making good trouble. And then he decided to get on the other side of it and was on the city council for a long, long time. He was city council president for a long time. And then he moved up to Harrisburg, and he was a state senator. And Jim Furlow was always an unabashed progressive. When he came out as gay, it was, I thought, the funniest thing that had ever happened, because everyone knew he was gay. It was one of those, and I think he said, and by the way, I'm gay. Get over it. And we're all thinking, well, Jim, who didn't know? We all knew. I think I sort of reacquainted myself with Jim Furlow relatively recently when I was serving on the state board of the ACLU. And I was in charge of the nominating committee, which goes out and looks for other people that would enhance the board. And I helped bring Jim Furlow onto the ACLU board. And because some of those meetings were in Philly, we would end up, spending some time together. And I got to know him more in his last years than I had before. And what up to the end, just a bundle of energy. Good. I always push it. And one of the fascinating things about him that I learned in the obit is he dropped out of high school. He dropped out of Taylor Alderdice. He did not have a high school education. And it was something that was he had two deep, dark secrets for much of his life. It was that he was a high school dropout and he was gay. So this bundle of energy was living a lot of, I can't even imagine the sort of psychological toll that a lot of this stuff took on him. Because his sister is quoted in the obit as saying he was always worried that someone was going to find out. He, much later, decided to do something about it. He went and got his GED. Now, meanwhile, when he got his GED, he was already better educated than most people who graduate from college. He was self-taught. He was smart as a whip. I mean, you would never know this guy was a high school dropout. He was an eloquent speaker. He had a huge vocabulary. And he knew so much stuff. So I just want to say, I thought that was a fascinating anecdote. And again, how we assume things about people. He knew what the assumption would be if people knew he didn't have a high school diploma. Jim Furlow, good man, gone too soon. Anyone who's younger than me is gone too soon. And he left behind a whole bunch of good work moving things forward. Henry writes, I live with two educators, my wife, who is a special needs teacher's aide, and my daughter, who is a kindergarten teacher. My daughter took a day off today. She needed a day to herself. I wasn't going to question it. My wife left for work this morning, and I gave her a tighter hug than usual. Henry says, teachers don't teach for the money. It's a calling. And we ask far too much of them. Thank a teacher today. Yeah, well, I saw some of the Texas Republicans are talking about, we got to arm them. We got to arm those guys. They got to do a little more for us. Yeah. Dear God in heaven. Josh writes about Jim Furlow. I met him a few times at his office in the state capitol when I went to lobby day with Clean Water Action. He was always a supporter of environmental issues, a true ally. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Indeed. Oh. Okay, I'm just going to take it easy now through the end of the show. I'm sorry. There are some other things I need to talk about, but I just, if you don't mind. Until I have my pacemaker. You know what's weird about the pacemaker, and what I've got to find out is, since they put pacemakers in people whose pulse is very low, and my pulse has always been very low. Now, you wouldn't know that by knowing me. I'm somebody who cannot tolerate much caffeine. I don't drink coffee. I can't take an Excedrin because there's too much caffeine in it. I just get jittery as hell. So, I mean, I do just fine on this really low heart rate. And part of what I'm thinking is, since my heart beats about half as much as a normal heart, wouldn't you think it'd be in really great shape? I mean, I got to ask the cardiologist that. I mean, I've been thinking about it. You know, it's almost half as much. So if it would seem that, you know, if your normal heart is beating 2 times each one of mine, wouldn't it wear out faster than mine? That's what I'm saying. Anyway, apparently that's not quite true. So the pacemaker is going to make sure it's beating in a normal manner and not going, you know, up all of a sudden or down, which it can do too. And I'm thinking, heck, if they I got to talk to the doctor about, so what are you going to set me at? I mean, I'm going to be set at a certain number of beats per minute. And what I'm thinking, if they set me at the norm, what's the norm? Is it 72? I'll feel like I might start talking twice as fast. I mean, I might feel like I drank 3 cups of coffee. I don't know. I'm not going to necessarily like that. I can't imagine what that's going to feel like. Or maybe it won't have any impact. I don't have a clue. So anyway, I'm sorry. I digress. Hey, I saw this and this makes me happy. Right here, New York Times. Indiana bars transgender athletes. They overrode a Republican governor's veto and overwhelmingly said, hey, you transgender, it's transgender girls. You cannot play sports. And I was looking at that and thinking, this is the Republican Party. Look at all of what has to be dealt with in this country. The bread and butter issues. Our healthcare system. Guns. Mass murder. All this stuff. And this is what Republicans do. I know I'm going to sleep a lot better tonight, knowing that some poor kid, 1 or 2, in Indiana, who wanted to be on the swim team, will not be able to. I'll tell you, I am sleeping baby. I got a caller. Go ahead, please.
I'm about to tell anybody who says thoughts and prayers to shove it up their ass right now.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, it's and after I do that, I'm going to take all my money and invest it in some sort of gun company, because now these chicken shit gun owners are going to get scared that their guns are going to be taken away, and they're going to go buy more ammunition and stuff, and stock values will go up for the gun people because of our lunacy here.
Yeah, that's all part of that's the dance. It's all part of what we all know happens next. And we know that. This is the dance we do.
But can you imagine, like, so in the 1980s, and I grew up right outside Washington, D.C., right where the MAD movement, against Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And can you imagine if we just said, no, we're not going to have any more laws. My hearts and prayers to all those killed by drunk drivers. That wouldn't fly, because we used fucking common sense. We used common sense back then. And now it's like, we're in Crazyville. And that's not news to you or me, but it's sad. It's really sad. I mean, and as far as having pictures, get pictures of all those poor children. Just and just go in, and maybe that's the way. And then, just like that stupid senator or congressman came in with a snowball and said, "It's snowing outside. There's no climate change." Congress should just come in and just put up on their screen the pictures of all the mayhem and violence and tragedy, and say, you want to not believe this shit, and you don't want to do anything about it. It's so heartbreaking. And these are supposedly the pro-life people too.
Yes, I know, of course. These are the pro-life people. All right, Roger, thank you.
Sorry, I thank you for just letting me vent.
Okay, appreciate it. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. Brooklyn writes, and this is a wonderful idea. The NRA is holding their annual convention this weekend in Houston. If we could get 500,000 people to march on D.C. the day after Trump's inauguration, shouldn't we be able to get at least that many to show up in Houston this weekend? Well, that's the kind of thing that has to happen. Now, you can say marching doesn't do a thing, but something like that followed over and over and over again, sustained. Nothing happens overnight. It doesn't happen. But the fact that the NRA convention will be able to go off in Houston, Texas, without a hitch. By the way, Donald Trump is going to be there, I believe, to speak. And there aren't hundreds of thousands of Americans outside. Again, I go back to what I said. The gunman didn't act alone. That can be said of every one of these horrors. The gunman did not act alone. Aided and abetted by legislators, judges, governors, voters. We, the people. And until the people really care, I don't like put all the teddy bears and flowers outside the school you want. Yeah, cry and bemoan and pray and pray and pray. Do all that stuff. None of it does a damn thing. 500,000 people outside the NRA's convention in Houston would be a start. You know what I like? I like the idea of 500,000 armed people outside the NRA convention. What are they going to do? Say they're fearful? Huh? I'm just spitballing here, but Brooke has given us a damn good idea. Got another caller. Let's slip you in. I only got a few minutes. Go ahead. Hello? Hello? Huh? Oh, God. Hey. Hey, guys. I don't know. How about if I know we got a few minutes left. I just don't feel like talking anymore. We've had shows that started a few minutes late. Let's look this one to start a few minutes, end a few minutes early. I think I pretty much said my piece. Yeah. That's it for me. Got nothing else to say. I'll catch you tomorrow.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.